everyone, I'm Becky. Thanks for tuning in for Storytime today. Today, my Storytime theme is all about monsters. And so I wanted to start with a book by Patrick McDonnell. It's called The Monster's Monster. And there are three little monsters who think they're pretty big and tough and monsterly, and they decide to create a big monster. And so let's see how that monster turns out. Grouch, Grump, and Little Gloom and Doom thought they were monsters. They lived in a dark monster castle high atop a dark monster mountain overlooking a monster-fearing village. The little monster heads were always filled with big monster thoughts. Smash, crash, and bash. Huffing and puffing, mad about nothing, their 10 favorite words were no, 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 and no. Every day they argued over who was the biggest, baddest monster, who could complain the loudest, who could throw the most terrible tantrum, who was the most miserable. These debates always ended in a brawl. So one day they decided to settle the argument once and for all. Grouch got some tape, some tacks, staples, and glue. Grump found some gunk gauze and gobs of glue. And Gloom and Doom grabbed bolts, wire, and a smelly old shoe. So together, they would make a monster's monster, the biggest, baddest monster ever. Look how big he is. So they hoisted their creation into the stormy sky where, bam, a lightning bolt sent a powerful jolt through the creature. The monster started to twitch. "He's alive! He's alive!" the little terrors exclaimed. The monster roared as he stumbled around, tearing away his bandages. "Big," Little Gloom squealed. "Bad," Little Doom squeaked. "Monster," they all cheered together. So the growling giant reached toward them, and then in a deep, booming voice, he said his first words. "Thank you." He crushed them to his chest with a tight squeeze. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Monster wiggled his stubby monster fingers and he tapped his clunky monster feet. He looked around in wonder and he threw open a window. The room filled with a warm, early dawn light, bird songs, and dewy, fresh air. Monster smiled and let out a little giggle. "What do you think you're doing?" cried Grouch. Monster bounced around the room, gently greeting the many bats, the rats, the spiders, and the snakes around him. "No, no, no," shouted the group. "You're supposed to be a monster." But Monster did not think he was a monster. He didn't think he was anything but thankful to be alive. So Monster became still, sniffing a hint of sweetness in the morning air. Suddenly, he let out a roar and smashed through the dungeon wall. "Ha ha," Grouch laughed. "He's finally coming to his senses." "Yes, yes," shouted Grump. "He's off to make mayhem in the village." "He's going to smash and crash and bash," cried Gloom and Doom. The rascals dashed after Monster, trying to keep up with his long strides down the mountain. "Monster, Monster," they cheered after him. The village bakery was just opening for the day when Monster plowed through the front door. Grouch, Grump, and Gloom and Doom anxiously waited outside the shop, peering through the dusty windows. "Big," whispered Gloom. "Bad," whispered Doom. "Shh," said Grump. "I want to hear the howls and the yowls." There was a tense quiet, and then finally, from inside the bakery, they heard, "Thank you." And Monster appeared, clutching a white paper bag. He turned and headed out of town toward the beach. After him, the trio cried, "Monster, Monster!" Monster slowly knelt down on the soft, cool sand. Grouch, Grump, and Gloom and Doom collapsed in a heap around him. As they tried to catch their breath, Monster gently patted their heads. He carefully opened the bag and gave each of them a warm, powdered jelly donut. What a nice thing for a monster to do. Grouch, Grump, and Gloom and Doom were speechless. But then they remembered what their big bad monster had said. "Thank you," they said. Monster looked at them and smiled. They smiled back, and together they all started to giggle. Grouch, Grump, and Little Gloom and Doom and their new friends sat quietly on the shore, watching the sunrise, the seagulls playing, and the seagrass dancing, and the ocean glistening, and no one was thinking about being a monster. So that's the story of The Monster's Monster, again written by Patrick McDonnell. All right, I have another kind of monster here, and this is the Tickle Monster. And you can see he is big and he is scary. So let's see what happens to this Tickle Monster. Hey, Tickle Monster, you don't scare me. If I tickle your horns, you can't poke me. If I tickle your arms, you can't catch me. If I tickle your feet, you can't run after me. If I tickle your teeth, you can't bite me. If I tickle your tummy, you can't swallow me. If I tickle your ears, tickle, 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 you can't hear me. If I tickle your nose, you can't smell me. If I tickle your eyes, you can't see me. And if I tickle your head, you're gone. Goodbye, Tickle Monster. Phew, now I can finally go to sleep. But if you ever come knocking on my door, Tickle Monster, beware. I will tickle you again. So that is the story of our Tickle Monster. And as you see, the way to defeat it was just to tickle it. And it turned into this wooded scene with a house and a car and a trailer, all in the nighttime. So thanks for helping me defeat that Tickle Monster. So for the last song for Storytime today, I thought we would do If You're a Monster and You Know It. So monsters tend to have these really sharp claws. You ready to get those out? If you're a monster and you know it, show your claws. If you're a monster and you know it, show your claws. If you're a monster and you know it and you really want to show it, if you're a monster and you know it, show your claws. Good. Monsters also tend to have big paws, really good for stomping. Let's see if we can stomp our paws together. If you're a monster and you know it, stomp your paws. If you're a monster and you know it, stomp your paws. If you're a monster and you know it and you really want to show it, if you're a monster and you know it, stomp your paws. And let's think about what monsters say. They're really good at roaring and growling, so let's see if we can give it our best. If you're a monster and you know it, roar out loud, roar. If you're a monster and you know it, roar out loud, roar. If you're a monster and you know it and you really want to show it, if you're a monster and you know it, roar out loud, roar. All right, thanks so much for joining me for Storytime today and pretending to be monsters. We'll see you next time.